Okay. So again, welcome to this HFE Women panel, and thank you for Mingyao for getting this all facilitated. I will turn it over to her in a moment. I just want to mention a few quick things. If you don't know me, my name is Heather Lum, and I'm the HFE Women President/Chair. At least for the next few months. So one of the things I do want to mention is that we are going to be moving forward with nominations for certain positions within HFE Women. So please look for that in the next coming weeks. There are a couple positions up for grabs, including HFE Woman President. So there's plenty of opportunity for you to get involved in some way. The other thing I do want to mention is that the details surrounding this are still being worked out, but the COTGs, the Council of Technical Groups, and also the Council of Affinity Groups, of which HFE Woman is one of those, are planning to do kind of a different thing at the HFES National Conference, the Aspire Conference. So typically we would all kind of do our separate meetings or social hours. But given the kind of isolating location where we're going to be this year, combined with a few other things, including finances, one of the ideas that we are currently working on, and I will be talking to the Council of Affinity Groups tomorrow, is this kind of big social hour where almost everyone, every technical group and affinity group will kind of have a little area of a big ballroom where you'll get a chance to not have to choose where you go, because I know that's one of the things that we always talk about is there's so many technical groups and there's so many affinity groups at this point that, and then your own alumni groups that do your social hours and the other. So trying to do it in a way that you will get a chance to see where your own affinity groups are at and get a chance to talk to folks within there, as well as talk to other affinity groups and possibly join them and technical groups as well. So as soon as we have all of that ironed out, we will certainly let you know that as well. All of you should have received your Aspire confirmations, acceptances for those of you who submitted something. So congratulations to those who got accepted. And then just a reminder that those who are also doing the proceedings papers, that those are due in May 20th, I believe. So if you have any comments or any questions, you can ask me. And by the way, anyone is welcome to join HFE Woman for just one of these events, or you do not have to be a female in order to be an HFE Woman. Anyone who is interested in issues surrounding human factors and women is more than happy to be part of this. So welcome to those of you who have joined who are not currently members. And just wanted to check it out. This is going to be an interesting panel of women who are navigating the world of academia, especially the first couple of years of academia. So I am going to turn it over to Mingyao. And again, I just want to remind everybody that this is being recorded. And this will be shared on our social media as well as our website once it gets processed. So without further ado, Mingyao, thank you for facilitating this discussion.
Yeah, thank you so much, Heather. Hello, everyone. I'm Mengyao Li. I'm so happy we can make this HFE Women Early Career Academic Faculty panel to put together. Today, we have like 4 amazing panelists. So I'm going to, the panel is around 1 hour. So we're going to start with introduction of our 4 panelists, and we have already prepared some facilitated questions. And for each question, I will open the floor so panelists can jump in if you have insights for each question, or we can take turns to answer those questions. And throughout our discussion, if you have questions, feel free just to put your question in the chat. And Lindsay and I will be facilitate those questions. And if you have a burning question, feel free to raise your hand and want to directly follow up a certain topic you want to discuss. And without further ado, and also one little reminder, because we have a lot of the participants and speaker, if you want to see a larger view, like for the panelists, you can go to your view session on the top right corner, and there is an option you can show only the video participants. In that way, you can minimize your little box and make our face a little larger, and then you can see our facial expression and our verbal expression much clearer. Okay, without further ado, I'm going to introduce the panelists. Today we have four amazing all first year early career faculty member here. So we have Colin Patton from Department of Psychology in the North Carolina State University. Colin, do you want to give a short introduction on yourself?
Sure, yeah. So hi, like Miguel said, I'm at North Carolina State University in the Human Factors and Applied Cognition program. My research focuses on human automation interaction, and I did my graduate schooling at Colorado State University in their cognition program.
Yeah, and next we have Eileen Roesler from Department of Psychology, George Mason University. Eileen, do you also want to give a brief introduction of yourself?
Yes, of course. Hi, everyone. Really nice to kind of like literally not, but see you today. And I'm Eileen. I'm an assistant professor for psychology, and I got my PhD from Germany. So I'm from a pretty different system and still get acclimated to the system here. But it's my pleasure to, for all of you who might be interested also in going beyond the US, feel free to ask me any question, because I had most of my education in Europe and just came over for the assistant professorship and some other research stuff earlier, but that's mainly it. And yeah, looking forward to your questions.
And next we have Ocean from University of Michigan in Department of Industrial and Operation Engineering. Ocean, do you want to give an introduction of yourself?
Yeah, so thank you for the introduction, Mingya. So I'm in the Industrial and Operations Engineering department, as Mingya said, and my focus area is, and I'm a first-year assistant professor here in the IOE department, and my focus area is in neuroergonomics, specifically in studying fatigue, human motor adaptation, and what's the role of the brain in human fatigue and motor adaptation. And I'm excited for this panel.
Thank you. And I will also give a formal introduction of myself. Hello, everyone. I'm Mengyao Li. I'm the first year assistant professor in the School of Psychology at Georgia Tech. And my PhD is Industrial System Engineering at Wisconsin-Madison. And I'm also first year. So I think this panel is perfect. We have a good blend of some engineering background, some psych background. We have some US based. We also have people from German, like international. So hopefully our experience transition from our grad school to our first year faculty position right now can give you some insights. And I have prepped some questions. I'm going to go through them, and I'm going to ask a question. I'm also going to post a question in the chat. And if people have comments, feel free just to, if you have follow-up questions to those questions, feel free to comment in the chat. So the first question, because human factor, to be honest, is a really small field. And so how did you or all of us choose human factor as a career? And considering human factor is a multidisciplinary smaller field, and how did you zoom into the topic you want to study? For example, we have people study fatigue, study attention, study trust. How did you actually zoom into the specific topic and want to dedicate your research actually on that specific area? Whoever wants to jump in first, there is no specific order. So we can also let the audience to better understand our backgrounds, our journey on the where we're at right now.
Well, I can start. I sort of, in some ways, I think fell into human factors. My mom is actually a human factors psychologist, so obviously as a teenager, I thought that was the lamest thing that I could ever do. And then as I got older and realized that what she did was really cool, I got some experience with it as an undergrad. And I actually just pulled up my personal statement that I used to submit to graduate school recently and realized that what I had said I was going to do is not even at all where my interests lie. I think I fell into human automation interaction really as a result of the grant that I was funded on as a grad student. That's kind of where the focus was. And I just realized that that was what I was really interested in. And so it worked out kind of nicely that I got to be funded to do things that I did have an interest in. So for me, it was just sort of a lot of things kind of coming together in a serendipitous way.
Yeah, I learned something new about you. I don't know, your mom is also a human factor researcher.
I can go next.
Mhm.
It's funny what Colleen said about I don't want to work in human factors because my father is an engineer and he's also faculty. And when I was younger, I used to say two things I'm never going to be is a teacher and an engineer. It's funny how these things happen. So just like Colleen said, I would say, stumbled into human factors and ergonomics. So I did not have a lot of background in human factors and ergonomics, or even an understanding of what encompasses HFE, before I started working with my previous advisor, working on a research problem statement. And I think what really attracted me to human factors and ergonomics is it's a higher human factors and ergonomics problems are higher dimensional problems. If I would compare them to just purely engineering, like optimizing problems or any problems where you're not just working within a boundary of a set of equations or a set of numbers, but you're really these problems are so complex and so deep that you really get to employ both your uh, cognitive side as well as your creative side in coming up with solutions. And I really like this space because of that, because it really helps me exercise my curiosity much more, I feel, than operations research, which was the area I used to work in before.
Yeah, I would say until now, I'm not quite sure if I ever chose a career. So still ongoing process in the way that it's always different circumstances that come together and lead you to wherever you go. And they are weird. So for me, it was like when some of you have a psychology background, I just started like in Germany, no one knows what human factors is. Like seriously, I've never heard about this term until I was working as a researcher and lecturer in a human factors program. So it's pretty not a big issue where I'm from, but I was kind of like going from one interest to the next, and I, for different reasons, resonated incredibly, like not with psychology in general, to be honest, but with human technology interaction. So on this kind of, I don't know, I think every roadmap is really a wild one. So biographies are seldomly straightforward. And actually my PhD topic I found because I was like in the evening going out with like other research friends, and I met this wonderful professor from another university, and I just discussed with her the whole night human robot interaction. And I've never read any article on human robot interaction beforehand. And it sounds super weird. Then I visited her lab for a complete other reason. And then I was like, okay, this is what I want to do my PhD on, talk to my primary advisor, and everyone was kind of on board. And I have the feeling that, I mean, it might work when you have an idea about a career, but I think until now, even my topics are so driven by this passionate moment when you're discussing with other researchers. I'm like a super basic researcher, that is important to say. So it's not often that I discuss with companies or someone from a practical side, but when you discuss with other researchers and you have this moment where you're like, oh my God, yeah, how does this actually work? Like what actually happens and why does it happen? And I think this curiosity was a wonderful word for it, to be honest, because I still can't wait when I have fresh data to analyze it, just because I'm so excited what the outcome is. And yeah, so I kind of think like with all of us, it kind of chose me because it was the one thing I stick most with. And I was most passionate to to work on. And I think still my topics are, and I forgot this at the beginning, in human AI and human robot interaction. And even now it's further developing, always based on what is interesting, what are my PhD and graduate students are interested in. And I love this field for this. It has an amount of diversity and this wonderful scope from being super basic to applied, and so much variability for engineers and psychologists. So yeah, until today, I think the career is kind of developing.
Yeah, I think this field, I definitely feel everyone, like I'm also stumbled into this field when I was undergrad. And I thought everything will be like planned out. I like to make my 3-year plan, 5-year plan. I like to see very clear what I'm doing for my PhD, for even my faculty life. But that's not true. And I keep hearing the same story from a very fresh like faculty member, or I interview some more senior faculty member. They all kind of stumbled into this field and just found love in that. I love everyone are driven by the curiosity. Like to share a little bit on my personal story, when I was undergrad, I really interested in this like aging technology. I was trying to join Professor Wendy Rogers' lab when she was back at Georgia Tech, but at the time she's moving to UIUC. Therefore, I transferred to Professor Bruce Walker's lab and focused on the driving. And then that's how story starts, and keep working on driving, working on the trusting automation, then stumble into Professor John Lee's lab. So I think there is some type of top-down processing. I know I want to study this human automation, human technology interaction, but there's also more of like exciting project coming up. What are the existing fields? How are the technology advanced? Considering like current trends on the large language model, a lot of the researchers are studying that. So I think it's a combination of the two ends that draw us like to the final direction. So hopefully maybe we have some like people like in the audience right now who are struggling. How should I pick my PhD topic? How should I go for like my 5-year plan? Maybe just like, it's okay. It takes time. Sometimes the opportunity will find you. Yeah.
And it's always okay to pivot
Yeah, it's always okay.
whenever you feel like you need to. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely agree. I think kind of like, I mean, don't know if you all agree, but the topic finds you. I really think it's like this one thing where you resonate incredibly with.
Yeah.
And it's completely okay if you're in between, like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yes.
This is like everyone experienced this.
Yes.
I've never heard from anyone in academia who was not during their PhD, like, okay, this is not my journey.
I definitely feel that, because when I was applying for PhD, I was designated to say I'm doing driving. I applied to all the driving faculty. And then once I joined the lab, my advisor assigned me to a NASA project, which is not on driving at all, it's on virtual agent. At that time, I was like, I really want to do driving for my PhD. But then I think it's also a blessing for me to learn more about the virtual agent. Now I'm working more on the robot aspect. So I think if you open up to the possibility and then keep applying those fundamental principles in the human factor, I think all the skills are transferable. So don't get panicked if your plan doesn't align with where you're planning.
Completely agree.
Yeah. Anything else? Should we move on to the next question? So I know throughout our PhD or like picking our career-wise, there's always this huge question, like industry or academia, especially for this applied science, like or people in the engineering fields, like they like in industry, they always have like a better pace, or like why do we all choose in academia? How did you make that decision?
I think this is for me easy because it just follows on the beforehand, the incredible freedom. It is like, this is my 100% main reason. Yes, we do have service. Yes, we do have to a certain degree teach, but the rest is completely up to your own interest. And this is, I think, why this job is incredible. It is a lot of work. We don't like we would lie if we would say, no, it's completely easygoing and whatever, but we can like wake up every morning and just work on something we intrinsically are interested in. No one else told us what we have to do, like what we are going to do research on. And this is, I think it's incredible because it's combining the kind of safety of an academic position. So we're not like founding a company that might get like, and even then you have contract work, to be honest. So in academia, you have the pleasure, apart from grants, to not do contract work, but actual contract work for your own interest. And I would not trade it for more money. And I know a lot of people tell me so often that we would earn so much more in the industry, and it's true. But I mean, we can create our job every day. If we want to do something completely new in this, of course, area where we have expertise, we can do this. And so, yeah, I still kind of think academia is a great opportunity if you love autonomy.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's 100% my reasoning too. I always say that I don't do very well when people tell me what to do. And so I like to get to tell myself what to do. I think the other piece of it for me too, even though, you know, being an R1 means that research is what I'm judged on more than anything. Getting to interact with students is so rewarding because for me, I actually was not ever looking at industry. I was trying to decide between government work or academia. And it's really hard to get that mentoring piece in, I think, industry as well, but in government too, because you're just working with colleagues, people your own age. And I just love to work with students, so students that are motivated, and when they have that aha moment and or they get into grad school or whatever it is just a reward that I wasn't willing to give up. So yeah, I agree. I think you know, my husband's in business, not psychology at all. And he always says that he could do anything if it paid well enough. And I'm always like, you couldn't pay me enough to do certain jobs. And I think that's really what it comes down to, is it's not about the money or the fame or anything that might come with some of those other kind of industries, but the freedom to get to do what I want and to mentor students who are just as passionate about these things is what makes it all rewarding.
I agree as well. First of all, I think a lot of times when people are choosing their careers, they don't factor in job satisfaction as much as they could, because I have been right out of my graduation, when I graduated from a bachelor's degree, I did have a job in industry. And in terms of what phase of life I was in at that time, it paid me really well. I did not have any financial limitations or constraints, but I hated every second of it simply because it didn't give me satisfaction. I realized that to do your best in any job, you really need to have a passion for it. You need to find ways that it should satisfy you in some way. So for me, I knew that I wanted to be in academia even before I knew that I wanted to work in HFE, because I realized that it really aligns well with my goals and things that make me feel satisfied, because I'm not just passionate about the research that I'm doing, but also just the process of learning. So for example, this is the first time that I taught a course all by myself without any mentorship this semester. And what I realized was that your philosophy of how you want to teach, your philosophy of what you want the students to take away from the courses that you're teaching, the things that you're teaching, those things matter a lot. And those things matter a lot to me. So because my values align so well with this job space, I knew that even if things will be hard, even if it doesn't pay as much, I will get that job satisfaction, which will keep me going and keep me wanting to, get better and better.
Yeah, I definitely feel all of you. I definitely love the freedom here, love the control. I can decide what type of the research I'm doing. And unlike Ocean, when I joining the PhD, I'm not sure whether I want to go to industry or academia. So my experience actually, I just try industry. I try like 2 internship. I gave first chance, I gave second chance. And then I realized there are a lot of good parts, like the people I'm working with, I really love working with them. But then I just like limit on the direction of the research I want to go. I love the fact that I can just be my own boss and deciding where do I want to go, if there's funding opportunity there, considering all of that. So for people out there who are unsure, or if you're thinking about it, think about the value, like what do you value the most? Like, is that the freedom, or is that something else? If you're not sure, I actually encourage my PhD student just to try it out. It's okay, just try out and see what fits you the best. Yeah.
Do you mind if I add another thing to this?
Oh, for sure.
I
good
had
question.
this conversation with someone years back where they were very confused as to why I want to stay in academia, and I was confused as to why they want to be in industry. So I realized it really matters as to what you want to achieve using your research. I think there are pros and cons to both. There are a lot of pros to industry, which I can appreciate even if they are not something that I align myself with. Like it's very value driven. You're able to do more effective research and you're able to see your research out in the field faster. So in a sense of, if you want your research to make a tangible difference in the world and you can see that difference, then industry is great for you. But for me, I didn't want my research to be value driven. I wanted it to be more, I would say, value driven in the sense of utility driven, but I wanted to be more equity driven and driven by values of what type of change do I want to see in society, even if it may take a lot longer, or even if it doesn't have any economic impact, if you understand what I mean. So I
Yeah.
realized that that's where I am better suited to academia. So there isn't that this is better or that is better. It's really about what you want to get out of your career.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great point. Definitely don't want this panel to be very skewed because
Yeah.
all of us are in academia.
Academia.
There are a lot of pro side
Yeah.
for industry. Yeah, I have like so many friends working in certain company. Their research time is like 1 week or 2 weeks. They will run the study, see the results, and immediately it will dispatch to so many users. They will immediately see the impact of their work, which is really tangible. If that's something matters to you, definitely go for industry. Just to like think about what matters most to you. Yeah, and then make the decision. And it's okay if you try a little bit and don't like one and then pick the other.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts? Should we move on to the next one? Yeah, so like because we're in the HFE women and throughout the journey, like from wages like as undergrad to PhD to identify your career path to transitioning now to the early career faculty roles, are there any like support along the way? And there any influential female mentor you want to shout out to inspire you along the way? Or as a supervisor or as a mentor right now, what type of role do you want to play?
I think at least from my experience, you know, I worked with 2 male advisors, but they were still my support system through and through. I think that what I see happening a lot, which is not just true in academia, but even when you look at like women applying for jobs in all different industries and different places, is that we are less likely to speak up for ourselves, to brag about ourselves. And so I think above all else, like you have to be your biggest advocate. When I was applying for academic jobs, I basically would walk down the hallway of graduate students and anybody's door that was even vaguely open, I'd be like, hey, you need to listen to my job talk. Like take some time right now and listen to me practice this. Or, hey, can you look over this? You know, and I think being my own advocate was really helpful to get people to say yes, because people want to help you, generally speaking, but they're not always going to be the first to offer. So I think, you know, remembering that like you're capable of the things that you're doing, try not to let imposter syndrome get in the way, which is much easier said than done. And using the mentors and the people that you have around you to help you, because that's what they're there for. I would not be the scientist I am today or in this position without my mentors. But I think it's also just important to learn how to push for things and stand up for yourself, especially because in academia, you're going to often find yourself in rooms of, you know, where women are the minority. So you have to be able to sort of be your own advocate.
Yeah, I would like to I think it's a really short question, like a short add up, but I think having a mentor you work well with is so key. And I really want to be the advocate for my PhDs and master students as well. So I think this is something what we should do more. We should have the support networks. And I will do this, by the way, for every single of my students, independently of their gender. So non-binary male, female students. And I think at this point, maybe something what is also underrated for me, it was oftentimes not really about being a woman, because I mean, like, of course, it matters a lot, but seeing someone else in academia that has a personality that also matches yours, because I'm having like a like I'm having a gender that is rather uncommon in academia, but I'm even more having a personality that is rather uncommon in academia, especially in Germany, where people are really mean. In general, it's a cultural thing. And so finding someone where you have the feeling like also on a personal level, hey, a person like you can be a professor. I think that was for me the bigger learning curve than accepting like being a woman can be a professor, because all women I met a long time were telling me, yeah, Eileen, you're like our little sweetheart. And that was meant not as compliment, meaning you are not able to be competent, but super nice. And all recommendations I got a long time was, yeah, get harder, get meaner, get whatever. And I was like, yeah, but I don't want to do this. Like, I want to have fun with people when I work. And realizing that there are women out there who are still, it sounds super weird, I don't have a really good term for it, but really red, really female, like with all these female stereotypes that we don't like, that soft is something bad, that communicative is something bad. But seeing that this can be successful was helping me a lot. And then also being like, yeah, it's fine to be whatever person you are if you get your work done. So yeah.
So this is a topic I think I can talk about for hours. So I would definitely want to take this opportunity to shout out my advisor, Dr. Ranjana Mehta. She has been meeting her has been a phenomenal experience for me, not just for doing a PhD, but I feel that having a female advisor, and the female advisor of the type that she was, I think, or is rather, because she's still my mentor, it was a huge difference in helping me shift my perspective as to what it would be like to be a female researcher in this field. Because I didn't just get to see her as an advisor and a mentor just to me, but I also got to see her managing style, her advising style. And not that there is one specific way that, women are, or one specific way that men are, but I had these conceptions of how someone in a place of authority should be, and seeing her really helped me break a lot of those conceptions. She has been very informal at times, and she has been very approachable at times, but that didn't make me feel like I respect her less, but that made me feel like I respect her more, because this is a person who is smart, who is brilliant, who knows what they're doing, but at the same time, they don't feel the need to keep a distance between you and them. And I also have an understanding of how that managing style really helped me grow and be more comfortable making mistakes, be more comfortable communicating when I'm doing well as when I'm not doing well. How all those things were able to help me grow and help me achieve my excellence. So really having that experience made a huge difference for me in understanding what type of a mentor I want to be, what type of a, woman I want to be in this space, and how I want to support others. Not even that, but I remember the first time that I was presenting in the HFES conference, Julie Gilpin, right? So Julie Gilpin, she has only met me once or twice in conferences. We don't have a very deep relationship, but I remember that first time that I presented, she was there in the audience. She made sure she was there. And she would be, when I would get nervous, she would be looking at me and nodding and providing that support from the audience. And someone who, is just doing that, like that, can make such a huge difference. And even like what I'm trying to say is that, it's not just in the big picture, but even the little things that we can do as each other, as women, to I agree with both male and female students, but especially those students who are underrepresented, or who maybe need a little bit of more support, right? Doing that can make a huge difference in bringing up like more diversity into this area. So I first of all would like to shout out, and I would also like to shout out to all my amazing female, colleagues that I've had. One of them being Lindsay, who's right here. I think being a gender balanced lab, as a lab with like all genders, sorry, I would say all sexes equally represented, really helped us build a culture which was collaborative, communicative, and very cohesive. And I value that a lot. Sorry, I'll stop.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely feel you. I also want
Yeah.
to shout out my advisor. Also, he's male, but I think he's
Yeah.
really supportive. He builds a really collaborative and open lab. I think 99% of our lab mates are female students, which really help us to open up and talk a lot of more topics more easily. And I definitely agree with you. We should, this is a purpose for this panel. Yeah, we're here. I will personally open to any people who have questions concerning along the way. If you have questions, feel free just to reach out. What I learned from my advisor or my peer is that research is not only research. Academia is not only academia. It's like more than that. Like what Ocean say, just sitting in the audience, supporting for others, just giving the nods, like having the panel like this, make this type of job really, really enriching. And I would like to have more like this opportunity so people are feel they're included in this community. And since we're like, I prepared like 9
Yeah.
questions. We're only at question 3. We really had a lot of the things to talk about, but we definitely don't want this to be a one-sided only our discussion. So now I do want to open up the floors for the audience. So if you have like specific question or comments you want to follow up on our discussion, so now maybe we can switch back to the all like presenter view. And if you have like specific question you want to talk about, or should we still do the 4-person view? Which one is better? Yeah. So mhm.
How about whoever wants to ask a question can turn on their video and I
Yeah, so
can-
yeah, that works. Yeah. So whoever have like questions like about like all the question or comments we just made, if you have follow-up questions, you can just turn on your videos and we can have a discussion. I hope this will be in person, so this will be more natural, but online is a little bit awkward.
Yeah, and for everyone who feels uncomfortable to be recorded, I know that this is oftentimes, yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
Put text into the
You want to
chat.
text a
We'll answer
question, feel free to do
whatever you are interested in. Maybe I just start talking until someone asks a question, more or less, because I wanted to add one thing about what we talked a second ago, but it felt a little like off topic because it was not about supervising, but when you said peers, maybe it's a cute story, or cute is the wrong word. We see again why I'm not fitting into professional life at some points, but a great
But
story, in
hey,
my opinion.
I was just gonna say, but hey, like I don't think that's unprofessional. I think being a little informal is also okay.
Yeah,
It's
I completely
teachable.
got used to it. So cute is a perfect word. Okay, then I go for cute. That is so, I really appreciate. I'm half American already because it's so positive all the time. It's a cute story how at least 3 of us met in this digital room. It was because we were all during the same time applying for faculty positions and met each other at a conference. We've never seen each other before in a person, or at least I haven't seen you in person. And instead of having any moment of competition or whatsoever, we were like, oh my God, then you're in the same position as I am right now. I would love to learn something about this. And we started informal meeting digitally each other just for coffee and discussing how the transition is right now working, for what grants we apply for, which conferences we submit something, which special issues are interesting. So that's awesome. I just wanted to feature support instead of competition.
Yeah, definitely. I'm all for that. I think in academia, everything can feels like a competition. You're applying for the same grants, you're applying for this award, you're
Yeah.
competing for the timelines. You're like 100 people applying to one single position. It
Yeah.
feels like a competition. But at the same time, you don't have to turn that into a competition mode. You can just support each other. It's a fair competition. And yeah, just like yeah, I love the support we're having right now. We're very open and transparent along the way. Like just like all the discussion we have, I really, really value that. I think without this type of peer support, I will crash like immediately in academia. Yeah, otherwise we'll get so petty, and yeah, that's not the vibe we're going for.
Yeah.
I think we have one question. Amazing.
Yeah, there's a question in the chat from Zhao Yun that says, what is the biggest obstacle you have to get through on your load of academia? On your road, not load, excuse me.
I'll jump in here because I've been thinking a lot about, reflecting on my first year. We're final start today actually for us. So I'm kind of wrapping up this first year. And in the fall semester, I was talking with a colleague who is a tenured professor over in our computer science department. And I was just sort of being like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I don't understand how I got this job when I never have any idea what's going on. And he said to me, getting a PhD prepares you for all sorts of things. It does not prepare you to be a faculty member. And I think the biggest obstacle has just been learning all the things that you're protected from as a PhD student. So figuring out the service requirements that you should do and the ones you can say no to. For me, teaching has been a pretty big challenge because I only taught a little bit during grad school. And a lot of times there's this assumption that you're coming in as a faculty member with a postdoc under your belt that's given you tons of teaching experience. So I think the obstacle for me, is not just one obstacle, but lots of little hurdles, just trying to figure out what's what, because I can do research, right? We can all do research. That's how we got our PhDs. But understanding the politics of departments and things like that can, be really difficult. And so one of the best pieces of advice that I got going through the process of applying for jobs was to look at the department, the people that are there, and who they're hiring. I was really lucky to be hired in a cohort of 4 people, and that suggests that the department is open to change, right? If you're being hired as just one person in a department of 30, it's a lot harder to have your voice heard. It's a lot harder to find the help that you need. So I think it's been really helpful to know that like I have a mentor assigned to me and she is so wonderful and has helped me through these, and those sorts of pieces have really helped overcome the obstacles that are hard to predict when you're just starting out.
Great, thank you. Sorry, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next one. And we have another question from Taylor Watterson that says, what has been your process of finding new collaborators in academia, especially folks outside of your department that may not know what human factors is, but appreciates its value?
I can speak a little bit about that. So, so the way that I really started finding collaborators is discussing the problems, or I would say the biggest problem statements that I think that I would have a challenge with. So, for example, I'm in an industrial and operations engineering department where a large majority of the people are industrial and operations engineering people, which means, machine learning, operations research, that's their strength. Mathematical equations, that's their strength. So I would go and talk to OR folks about, what type of research they're doing, what types of different, let's say, prediction algorithms that they're working in, or machine learning work that they are doing, or adaptive AI work that they are doing. And then I would discuss the problem statement that I thought where an input from that expertise might be helpful. And then I was able to find a very good collaboration where our interests were synergistic, where there was this person who had a potential suggestion for how to do analytics, and I had the perfect problem for that, and then we could meet. So really, I think look for how you would want to expand your research, and then look for what type of expertise would you want to add into that, which would add value to it, which you necessarily don't have, or maybe you are not as confident in as other areas, is how I did it.
Yeah, that's an amazing strategy. I'm going to steal that option.
Go
Like
for it.
my strategy is just put myself out there.
I
was
just recently learned that strategy, so I shouldn't really be like, oh, I had this figured out. So
Yeah, I love that. I
keep
love
it a
that.
secret.
Yeah, my strategy is more casual. Like I do two things. I put myself out there. I was giving more like campus-wide talk and for
Yeah.
the semester or something, and then put my video out there and let people to see and notice me. Sometimes people reach out to me and say, "Oh, you're a new faculty. Your area is really interesting."
Mhm.
And that not always happens. So I do like reach out to other people if I think, oh, they're in the School of Computing, but they're also doing similar work. Maybe we can just have a coffee chat, just from something from very casual. And then I have like a lot of coffee chat across campus from civil, from IOE, and from computing, from robotics, from aero. I just have coffee chat from just casually talking about where we're interested. And sometimes we just like have some overlapping that we never imagined that would be overlapping, and then just come out of that casual chat. I think it's amazing. Yeah.
Okay, we have another question from Mike Cohen that says, what are some unique considerations you've had to account for in navigating academia as women that you wish your colleagues, mentors, and or students were more aware of, sensitive to?
Yeah, I have one really considerable point I want to make here in general, like for all universities I've ever worked for. Service is inherently oftentimes sexist, meaning women are assumed to be good in service. And unfortunately, we are socialized to being incredibly good in service. Like seriously, give us something to organize, write a protocol, whatever it is, even though it's a stereotype, it's unfortunately a self-fulfilling prophecy. It is working on average better. And this is the reason why women, even in positions where they should not end up with a lot of service, end up with so much service. And this is something where I wanted, where I, as a mentor, want to be really different. I'm telling my students, for example, yeah, you can be chapter president. It makes a lot of sense. Like, it's really an awesome thing and whatever. But it's what I always saw in my career so far, internationally also, is women do way more service as men. And they are assumed by all the men that they are better in it and that they are doing it because of this. And men even say loudly that women, like whenever there's a discussion who's doing what, it's like, yeah, the protocol or whatever is written by a woman. And I mean, like, seriously, you all got a PhD. I swear you are all able to do the amount of service. It's not a core skill that you're not able to learn. We are all socialized like this, but this is something where I want to kind of get awareness for, that service work is not valued. It's super important because it really holds together departments. But it's not valued on a level like publications or whatever, but it really ends up on the shoulders of women oftentimes, even though committees are equally like filled with male, women, and like a proportion of non-binary people. The work ends up with the non-male people. Most of the times there are, of course, people where this is not the case, but overreachingly, service is a woman thing, and this is something I have a huge issue with.
And to add to your point, Eileen, I agree with you completely that sometimes it's almost as if people are not even thinking about it, but they gravitate towards the women in the group to expect it. And if you are making the argument that men are not as good at service, then that's even more reason to have your male students participate in service so they learn. So just to give an example, like I am, of course, female and I participated a lot in service when I was a student, but I do see some PhD students who, male students who feel like they don't know how to approach. So it's both ways too. They don't know how to approach this because they need to show that they have done enough service and they need to, participate, but they are not encouraged, right? They are not, they are never explained the importance of this. So even they don't know how to participate. So I completely agree with you that women are overrepresented in service related roles, but and we need to add more men to it. We need to have more men participate as well, because as much as I I need like more time to work on my research, also men or like non-female, sorry, males also need to learn to be more collaborative, learn that skill of providing. So I completely agree with you. Yeah.
I think also as on a separate note, obviously I agree with everything you say, and I think I've been really lucky in my department to be protected from service as a whole up to this point. My biggest challenge that I've faced as a woman, and I don't know that every woman faces this, but especially I think as a young woman in front of a classroom, I struggle somehow to have these boundaries with students. They seem to think of me as a therapist, as a friend. And I think inherently, you know, they see women as more nurturing. And so they come to you with their mental health problems or the crises that they're in. And it's hard then too, especially when we've been socialized often to care, you know, so much about people's emotional states, to be like, well, like that sucks, like you have to do your work anyways, or, you know, how to find the balance of caring, but not crossing that like professional boundary. And so I think, you know, when I try to bring these conversations up with some of my male colleagues, they're like, I've never experienced that. Like that doesn't happen. And so it's a very odd, place to be, at least for me right now, of trying to navigate these really narrow lines where I do care so deeply about my students, but also need very much to have these boundaries set and for them to treat me the way that they would treat my male colleagues or my more senior colleagues.
Yeah, definitely. I feel all of this. Like, we know that we have to say no more often. We know that we have to draw the boundary more often, but I feel like I'm still practicing that. And oftentimes I just like say, okay, it's all right. I will just take on it. Do you guys have any like experiences on like saying no or any suggestion, recommendation how to do that, to draw that boundary from your students? Know what's a healthy boundary to say no to additional service. Do you guys have any tips on that?
I think it's so much easier, especially at the beginning when you are like, you know, that your career path or whatever is depending on so many opinions, on so many people. And you care so much about everything, what people think about you. And so this is something I want to reduce as well. But I think when you're not the one saying no, this is so amazing if you have kind of like confederates or something like in an experiment, nearly like in an experiment. If a PhD would, for example, come to me and we would be like, Eileen, I would love to take this or that position, but actually it's too much right now. It is right now too much. I cannot handle it. Could you, as chapter advisor, maybe say something like, oh no, I don't see whatever. And I think it's an interesting point because on the one hand, it feels wrong because you don't want to speak for someone else. But actually, it's not that wrong because you're aligned with each other, speaking for someone who might feel kind of at a certain point intimidated. So I'm, for example, super happy if some of my oftentimes also non-male people who say this, but also male colleagues of mine as well, if they're in a like somewhere and like, okay, yeah, no, Eileen can't do this service. Like, are you all crazy? She's already doing way too much. And this is so helpful because if you're not the person who has to initiate the no, it gives you also so much backup. Like I'm seen in doing all the work I'm already doing. So I want to provide this for my student to like whenever they want it, of course. But I think that's actually an underrated option because I was always like, yeah, I don't want like anyone else speaking for me. But then I realized how well, like how great it felt to like be seen and be like, yeah, I do enough. It's enough. So I can recommend this actually.
I again completely agree with you. In fact, I have realized as a person that I'm more intolerant of unreasonable demands if they are being made off of my students or my peers or people I care about. And I am more accepting of unreasonable demands when it is myself. So one of the things that I do is I try to take that moment to be, okay, what would my response be if it was my student or if it was this other person? Don't I deserve the same amount of empathy that I am providing this other person? So I agree with you that sometimes it's hard for us to be as empathetic to others as we are, to ourselves as we are to others. So that is a practice that we should work on, you know?
Yeah.
Definitely need to practice on that.
And support.
Mhm. Yeah, I think there is a comment. I have never considered how women tend to get pushed into service and real emotional boundaries. Thank you so much for speaking to this. Little tear here from microphones.
Yeah, sometimes you don't even realize it yourself until you kind of start comparing things and you're like, oh, why am I doing all of this? Why did I spend a whole day on negotiating like issues on certain levels instead of doing research or even teaching or whatever? Not that we don't do it, like we're not like, it's not something we are forced to do, but it's like a general societal attitude that women are better in it. And actually they are at some point sometimes.
But
But
maybe
that
they are
doesn't-
better at it because they are pushed into it more so
Yes.
they can practice.
we have so much more practice in this,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Yeah.
I think it seems to me that, you know, everything that we've talked about in the last hour really comes down to your support system.
Yeah.
So maybe it's worth just kind of reiterating that point that I know I wouldn't be where I am today without the massive network of people that I have leaned on through the years. And I'm so grateful, you know, for the coffee chats that we have, and the ways that women have supported me, but also that men and other people have supported me. And I think, you know, if you don't have a network or even a small support system, like that's one of the most important pieces to find, especially as you're considering going into academia. The first year is hard. Like this is the hardest year, so much harder than defending my dissertation or any of the other things that I've done. And I don't think I would have gotten through it without the support system that I have. So it's just so crucial to have that.
Yeah, definitely. I'm trying to enrich that support system right now, passing on down to my lab. I'm trying to make them really cohesive and have formal, also informal interaction and letting them to just hang out a little bit, get to know each other on a personal level so they can work more collaboratively, warmly, and yeah, really trying to enrich that culture. Yeah, it's hard, but I'm trying my best. As we're closing down the time, maybe just like what Colleen does, do you guys have more like final takeaway what you want to give to the audience at the final piece of the things? Then we can wrap up this like discussion. I think we have amazing discussion in the past hour.
Maybe one thing I realized really late and what I like most enjoy about the role right now is when you're hardworking and good in your job, it's kind of completely valid to say your opinion and and this is like in really big brackets, like a little pain in the ass for other ones. And this is something what makes the job really enjoyable also. So you always have to prove, of course, unfortunately, kind of your performance. It sounds hard, but when you do this, feel free to say your opinion and it will actually help everyone in this interaction. So yeah, I think this is something as what we are socialized as well is like being so comforting for everyone around us. And I think being a little more discomforting can be really productive.
That's a really good one.
Yeah, I would also like to take the time to appreciate Mingyao and HFE women organizing this, because it's not just that we were able to communicate our experiences, but just the fact of seeing other faculty who are in their first year seem to be facing the same challenges just helps me feel so much better about the challenges I've felt. It affirms to that we are all in this together, and I really appreciate all of you sharing your experiences as well. It means a lot. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate all of you agreeing to join this panel. I really thank you for all the audience who attending this panel. Hopefully our experience are helpful for you in one way or the other. You can see our struggles, see our success. Hopefully those are comforting or inspiring in certain ways. And thank you so much for everyone. Colleen, do you have like other things to share or? Okay. All right. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much for joining this. And we are going to upload this like to online. So for people who couldn't see this, feel free. We were going to distribute the online video recording.
Yeah. Thank you guys also, the panel. Great job. I wanted to shout that out to you guys as well. And Mingyao, thank you for moderating. It was phenomenal to hear from all of you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.